Billionaire left his bride at the altar. Years later, she was the doctor who saved his life. The rain fell softly over the city, wrapping the world in silver mist. Inside the grand cathedral, rows of white lilies lined the aisle, their scent delicate and sweet. Guests whispered, glancing at their watches. The music had stopped long ago. Isabella Hart stood at the altar, her heart pounding painfully beneath the lace of her wedding gown. Her hands trembled as she clutched the bouquet of roses. Every second felt heavier than the last. The man she loved, Ethan Montgomery, was nowhere to be seen. He was supposed to walk through those doors an hour ago. He was supposed to take her hand and promise forever. But instead, there was only silence. Her chest tightened, and the laughter and chatter that had once filled the hall were replaced by uncertain murmurs. "Bella," whispered her best friend Caroline, stepping closer. "Maybe he's just delayed. Traffic, maybe." Isabella blinked back tears. "No," she said softly. "He wouldn't do this. Ethan wouldn't leave me." But deep down, something inside her cracked. The last call she'd gotten from him had been warm and full of promise. He'd said he couldn't wait to see her walk down the aisle. Now, his phone went straight to voicemail. The priest cleared his throat awkwardly. "Miss Hart, shall we wait a bit longer?" Her eyes filled. Just a few minutes more. Minutes turned to hours. And finally, as the guests began to drift away in uncomfortable silence, she realized the truth. Ethan wasn't coming. Outside, thunder rolled. Isabella stepped into the rain, letting it soak her veil and gown. Her tears mixed with the downpour. Somewhere in the distance, a car door slammed, but she didn't turn around. The fairy tale had ended before it began. What she didn't know was that miles away, Ethan Montgomery was pacing inside his car, his chest tight with anger and confusion. He had received a message that morning. A lie. A cruel, deliberate lie telling him Isabella had betrayed him. A message sent by someone he trusted more than anyone. He'd tried to call her, but his phone had crashed, and by the time he reached the church, guilt had already swallowed him whole. He saw her standing there, crying in the rain, and shame stopped him cold. He turned away, believing he didn't deserve her anymore. That decision broke 2 lives that day. Years passed. The world changed. Isabella no longer believed in fairy tales. She traded her white gown for a lab coat, her dreams for discipline. She became Dr. Isabella Hart, a woman known for her calm, kind hands, and a heart that healed others even when her own remained scarred. Every morning, she woke before sunrise, tied her hair back, and kissed her daughter Lily's forehead before rushing to the hospital. Lily was 4 now, bright, talkative, and full of life. Her laughter filled their small apartment, turning every corner into something warm and alive. Sometimes Isabella would stop mid-sentence, staring at her little girl's dimpled smile. She saw Ethan in her. The same sharp blue eyes, the same half-smile that melted her heart years ago. She had tried to hate him, but every time Lily asked, "Mommy, what was Daddy like?" she could only whisper, "He was kind once." The truth, however, was more complicated. Ethan Montgomery had become colder over the years. The world called him ruthless, a billionaire who built empires and crushed competition. But behind his stoic face he carried a weight no one saw. The day he walked away from Isabella had left a hole he could never fill. He told himself it was her fault. Then he learned the truth. A few months ago, a former employee confessed the text message that broke them apart had been a setup. Someone had lied to manipulate Ethan for business gain. He had destroyed the best thing in his life because of pride and deception. Since that day, regret had haunted him like a shadow. He had searched for Isabella, but she'd vanished. Every night her face appeared in his dreams, standing in the rain, waiting for him. And then, one stormy night, fate decided to intervene. Ethan was driving home from a charity event when the rain came down hard. His car tires skidded on the slick road, and before he could react, everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, flashing lights surrounded him. Paramedics shouted orders, rain poured on his shattered windshield, and he could barely breathe. "Stay with us, sir," one voice called. "We're taking you to St. Vincent's Hospital." As the ambulance sped through the night, Ethan drifted in and out of consciousness. the sound of rain blurring with the siren's cry. The last thing he saw before everything went dark again was the face of the doctor who leaned over him. Kind eyes, wet hair, a voice that felt painfully familiar. "Hold on," she said softly. "You're going to be all right." He wanted to say her name, to ask if it was really her, but the world faded to black before he could speak. That night, as the storm raged on, two souls who once promised forever crossed paths again, without knowing fate had brought them back to where it all began. The beeping of the heart monitor filled the quiet hospital room. Ethan's head throbbed and his body felt heavy, but he was alive. The scent of disinfectant hung in the air, mixed with something softer. Lavender, maybe, or vanilla. He blinked slowly, trying to focus on the room around him. A nurse entered first, checking his vitals. "You're lucky, Mr. Montgomery," she said with a polite smile. "The crash was bad. You had a mild concussion and a few broken ribs, but you'll recover." He groaned, his voice rough. "How long have I been here?" 2 days, she replied. "Dr. Hart has been overseeing your recovery." He frowned. The name tugged at something deep inside him. "Dr. Hart?" Before the nurse could answer, the door opened, and she walked in. Isabella. Her hair was tied loosely with a few damp strands falling near her cheek. The soft light of the room reflected off her tired but calm face. She wore her white coat like armor, confident, composed, professional. But her eyes, those deep hazel eyes, widened for a fraction of a second before she forced herself to steady. Ethan stared, speechless. It was as if time had frozen again. "Isabella?" he whispered, barely believing she was real. Her lips tightened. "Mr. Montgomery," she said evenly, "you're awake. That's good news." He blinked, confusion and emotion swirling inside him. "You're my doctor?" "I'm the attending physician this week," she replied softly. "We didn't expect to see each other again, did we?" He could hear the restraint in her tone, the years of distance she'd built around herself. I didn't know how to find you," he said, his voice cracking. "I tried," she held up a hand. "Please don't, you need rest." But the words he'd held in for years burst out anyway. "I didn't leave you because I wanted to. I thought," her tone sharpened slightly, "because you believed a lie?" That stopped him. His throat tightened. "You know." She nodded slowly, eyes glistening though her expression stayed firm. "I found out later. But by then, it didn't matter. You were gone. I had to learn to stand without you." Silence stretched between them. The monitor beeped steadily, marking the seconds of everything they had lost. Ethan's gaze fell to her left hand. Bare. No ring. And then to the small drawing pinned on her coat pocket. A crayon sketch of a smiling woman and a little girl. The letters spelled Mommy. Something inside him shifted. "You have a child." Her eyes softened, but her voice was calm. "Yes, her name is Lily." The name hit him like a gentle, painful wave. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" he said quietly. "She's my whole world," Isabella answered. She hesitated, then looked at him straight. "And she's 4. Ethan froze. His heart stopped for a second. 4 years. The same number of years since the wedding. The same number of years since he'd walked away. "Is she—" His voice shook. "Is she mine?" Isabella looked away, her hands gripping the file she held. "You forfeited the right to ask that when you left." He swallowed hard. "Please, just tell me." Her eyes met his again. Eyes full of pain, strength, and something softer beneath. "Yes," she said finally. "She's your daughter." The words broke him. He turned away, pressing his palm against his face as tears slipped through his fingers. The image of the little girl in the drawing blurred behind the salt in his eyes. "I missed everything," he whispered. Her first word, her first steps, all of it. Isabella's voice softened, but there was a quiet sadness in it. "You missed a lot, yes. But she's happy. That's what matters." He looked at her desperate. "Can I see her?" She hesitated. "She doesn't know you. She's only seen your picture. Please, Isabella. Just once." She studied him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Tomorrow. But only for a few minutes." The next day, When Lily walked into the hospital room clutching a stuffed bunny, Ethan's breath caught in his chest. She looked so much like Isabella, the same gentle eyes, but when she smiled shyly, it was his own grin staring back at him. "Hi," she said softly, tilting her head. "Are you Mommy's patient?" Ethan nodded, his voice trembling. "Yes, I think I am." Lily giggled. "Mommy says you're very brave." He smiled weakly. "She's wrong. Your mommy is the brave one." Isabella watched quietly from the doorway, her heart twisting at the sight. Her daughter chatting with the man who had once broken her beyond repair. And yet, something about the moment felt healing. For the first time, Ethan felt what true loss meant, not in the billions he'd earned or the power he held, but in the small, soft laugh of a child who didn't know she'd been waiting for him her whole life. When Isabella led Lily away, Ethan whispered to himself, "I'll make this right. I'll make everything right." Outside, the rain had stopped. The city lights shimmered through the hospital window, and for the first time in years, Ethan Montgomery prayed for another chance. Not as a billionaire, but as a father and a man who finally understood what love meant. The days that followed felt like the quiet after a storm. Ethan remained in the hospital for another week, recovering slowly under Isabella's care. She kept her distance at first, polite, composed, always professional, but there was something new in her tone now. A calm sadness instead of anger. Ethan watched her move around the room, her gentle hands adjusting IV lines and checking charts. Every gesture reminded him of what he'd lost, her warmth, her steadiness, the life they could have had. Sometimes she caught him staring and would quickly look away. Other times, when she thought he wasn't watching, she lingered just a little longer by the door. One evening, Lily came again, holding a bunch of wildflowers she'd picked near the hospital garden. "These are for you, mister," she said proudly, setting them on his bedside table. Ethan smiled, tears threatening to rise. "Thank you, sweetheart. They're beautiful." She grinned. "Mommy says flowers make people heal faster." He looked at Isabella then, who stood quietly in the doorway. "She's right," he said softly. "They do." After Lily left, Isabella stayed behind to tidy the room. The air between them was filled with words neither dared to say. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Why didn't you tell me?" She sighed, not looking up. "I tried. But every door I knocked on led nowhere. You had changed your number, your office, your life. And after a while I realized I didn't need you to raise her. She deserved stability, not broken promises." Ethan's voice was low. "You're right. You did everything I couldn't. I was weak. I let pride blind me." She turned toward him then, eyes shimmering. "You believed a message over me, Ethan. One lie, and you gave up." "I was a coward," he said simply. "There's no excuse for that." He took a slow breath. "But please, Isabella, don't shut me out completely. Let me be a part of her life. Let me be a part of yours, if you can ever forgive me." For a long time, Isabella said nothing. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted his blanket. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "You broke something that doesn't fix easily." He nodded, eyes glistening. "Then I'll wait. However long it takes." When he was discharged, Ethan didn't disappear this time. Every day, he came back to the hospital, not to talk, but to bring Lily small gifts, storybooks, flowers, a tiny wooden horse he'd carved himself. At first, Isabella refused them, but Lily's laughter, the way her eyes lit up, slowly softened the walls she'd built. Weeks passed, and Ethan began to help in quiet ways. He donated to the hospital anonymously, ensuring the children's ward got new equipment. He sponsored scholarships in Isabella's name. He never said a word about it. He just did it because he could. One morning, as Isabella walked out of her shift, she found Ethan waiting outside in the cold. His coat was dusted with snow, his eyes tired but kind. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me," he said softly. She hesitated. "You should rest." "I'm better now," he said with a faint smile. And I meant what I said. I'll do anything to prove that I've changed." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Why now, Ethan? After all these years?" He looked down, his voice quiet. "Because losing you once nearly destroyed me. Losing both of you again. I wouldn't survive it." Something in his tone cracked her composure. She had waited so long to hear those words, and yet they scared her. Love had hurt her once before, but the man in front of her wasn't the same one who left. Before she could reply, a small voice interrupted. "Mommy, Mr. Ethan!" Lily ran across the snow-covered pavement, arms open. Ethan crouched down, catching her in a hug. She giggled, brushing snowflakes from his hair. "You look funny." He laughed, the sound soft and real. "I do, don't I?" Isabella watched them quietly. The man who had once abandoned her was now kneeling in the snow, holding their daughter as though she were the only thing that mattered. And maybe, she thought, people could change. Maybe love, when it's real, always finds its way back. Later that evening, Ethan walked them home. Their apartment was small but cozy and full of warmth. Lily fell asleep on the couch, curled under a blanket. Isabella tucked her in gently, brushing a curl from her forehead. When she turned, Ethan was standing by the window, staring at the city lights. "She's perfect," he said quietly. "Just like you." Isabella smiled faintly. "She has your eyes." They stood there for a moment, the silence soft and full of meaning. Then Ethan turned to her. "I can't ask you to forget, but I want to build something new, from the truth this time. I want to be here, not as the man I was, but as the man you and Lily deserve." Her eyes glistened. "And what if I'm too scared to believe you?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you can." The city outside was quiet. A few snowflakes drifted past the window, catching in Isabella's hair. Ethan reached out, brushing one away gently. His touch lingered just long enough to remind her that sometimes broken hearts don't stay broken forever. She met his gaze, the years of anger and pain softening into something gentler. "Maybe," she whispered, "we start small." He smiled. "Small sounds perfect." As the clock ticked softly and the snow kept falling, Isabella leaned her head on his shoulder. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe, to hope, to dream again. Ethan closed his eyes, whispering a promise only she could hear. Never again. And this time, he meant it. Because sometimes the people who walk away aren't gone forever. Sometimes life gives them one last chance to return, to love, to heal. And when that happens, even the coldest night can end with warmth. Sometimes love isn't about perfection. It's about forgiveness. It's about two hearts learning how to find each other again, even after being broken. Isabella found her strength in pain. Ethan found his redemption in love. And together, they found their way home. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more stories that heal and inspire on Kin Hidden.